Beyond like some marketing stuff. This is beyond like just some great ideas. This is, Perry is looking at radically helping to shift and change the world in substantial ways. And it's great for me to feel a part of that and feel connected to that, and I think you guys feel the same. And so that's, I think, why we're here today. We all decided to stick around for another day to find out more about how we could change the world, even if it was just our own specific individual world, right? So we each have goals and aspirations. We've got a passion to build our businesses. We have a passion to do something more beyond our business and have something bigger than ourselves. And so I think that few people in the world right now are more proactive and aggressive about helping to find and discover the systems that are needed to do that and to stay one head. We walked out of there, and I've got 4 of my boys here with me. We walked out, I said, boys, what did you think of that? And my oldest son said, Dad, Perry is like looking far off into the future, and he's helping us to see what's coming in both business and society, and helping us to adjust and shift accordingly so that we're well ahead of the curve. I know that you think about things that have happened in Facebook, things that happened in Google AdWords, things that happened in a number of different industries. And Perry, I've known Perry for, I think, going on 10 years or so. And through all that process, Perry's always been one step ahead, one step ahead, one step ahead, and helping us all to be over-prepared for what's coming. So I want to start off and just sort of set the stage with what we're going to talk about. And then I'll give you kind of an idea about the outline. But in 1893, there was this lone man sitting up in Detroit, Michigan, who sat in a little, shed, his shack, his workshop, and he had an idea in his brain. Now, he didn't know this, and I'm not sure that maybe he saw, but everybody else outside of his little shed didn't know that the idea inside this guy's brain would literally wipe out millions and millions of their businesses, their incomes, their way of life, their lifestyle, everything that they were used to and that they had been accustomed to living and doing for them and their ancestors the last 6,000 years, right? So who was the guy? Well, the guy was Henry Ford. What was the project? Basically the Model T, or commoditizing or bringing the automobile to the masses. And the horse industry was completely eradicated. Horses, buggies, leathers, saddles, all these kind of things that all got consolidated down into this one bit of technology, this one vehicle. Now, to give you just to sort of paint a picture about how consolidated it became, in 1893, when Ford was sitting in his office tinkering around with the automobile, there were 22 million horses in America. 22 million horses, and think of all the industry that went along with that. 22 million horses. By 1930, as the Model T had rolled out and swept across America and all the different changes come and more manufacturers had picked up on Henry's production ideas and technologies, there were 8 million, 22 to 8 million, and today there are about 2 million. Now, here's the thing. We might say, well, gosh, that all those people and all those leather makers and saddle makers and the horse and buggy people, they all got wiped out. Sad, really sad story. But here's the interesting part about that story. And that is, in 1883, a racehorse, a good top-of-the-line quality racehorse, was advertised in the New York Times for $250. Today's dollars, that's about $6,000, okay? Yet today, last year, the average racehorse price was $93,000, wow. Right? Wow. So what happened is we took and consolidated and scrubbed down a whole industry. We eradicated the vast majority of it. But we took the average price for, and by the way, the top of the line winning racehorse sold for $22 million, right? So average price about $90,000, top end $22,000. Back when Henry Ford was tinkering around, top end was $6,000. So we went from $6,000 to $22 million for a top racehorse. Now, I think why that story is significant for setting the groundwork for what we're going to talk about today is that all of us right now face a significant shift in technology and in society that's going to consolidate down a ton of businesses. Let me give you one other quick example, and then I'll bring Perry up. A lot of my business over the years has specialized in copywriting. So in April of 2016, a little over 2 years ago, there was a group of 6 men that met in an office over in New York City. And they sat down and they cut a deal. And half of the table was Goldman Sachs. On the other half of the table was a company called Persuado. Is anybody familiar with Persuado? Okay, if you're in the marketing and copywriting space, you will become aware of this, okay? The deal was a $30 million deal, and it was an investment in AI technology that would write marketing copy. Okay, now, of course we say, well, machines are never going to be able to do that. I've got news for you. Guess what? Today, as of today, Persuado has tested 40 million pieces of copy on a split test and bumped it up against live copywriters. Guess who won? Persuado. Now, that's, if you're a copywriter or in the marketing space, that's interesting because
Wildly interesting.
So what happens if the economy goes south? So in 2008, I was strictly a copywriter. And in 2008, of course, Lehman Brothers and the economy went south. Insurance companies, real estate, everybody crashed and burned and had a hard time. And what I watched was companies systematically dismantled all their marketing budgets, which, of course, a major part of that were live writers. And they stripped it all down. But what if the economy goes south? And I'm talking specifically about copywriters. What if the economy goes south and now I can sign up for a subscription of $250 a month, and I can plug in a handful of ideas and I can get decent copy spit back out that I can use for my Facebook ads or my social media or my basic copywriting needs. Am I going to go back and hire someone like me that charges $10,000 or $15,000 a whack for basic projects? No. So this is an example of where industries are getting substantially consolidated. Now, just so if anyone's a few copywriters in here, just so you know, the disparity is happening. In other words, the same thing what happened with horses is going to happen to writers. Okay? So the vast majority of these guys are going to be completely wiped out. All those guys on Upwork that are selling their stuff for pennies on a dollar, goodbye. Bye-bye, they're history, they're gone. The handful of people that really understand human beings, really understand imagination, really understand how to see opportunities in different markets and different circumstances will be sort of the last man standing. And their fees and the demand and the respect that those people will command, those last remaining 2,000 horses, so to speak, will dominate a given marketplace and become millionaires and be super, super successful. Now, here's the deal. This is happening everywhere. This is happening everywhere. It's likely to happen in your industry. That consolidation, that putting things from an 80-20 to a 95-5 to a 99-1 is happening everywhere. 22 million horses, $6,000 for a top racehorse, 2 million horses, $22 million for a top racehorse. That is happening in our industry today. And one of the things we're going to learn about today is how do we, as business owners, position ourselves to be the last man standing, to be in that top segment. So here's how the day is going to roll out, okay? We're gonna run between now until about 10:30, and Perry's gonna do some training, and we're gonna have some group activities. We're gonna get hands-on, actually start implementing some of these ideas. We're gonna take a break. We'll come back for some more training. We'll take lunch at about 12:30. We'll come back at about 2, and then we'll dive into some hot seat sessions. And Perry will select a handful of us in here, and we'll be able to go and do hot seat sessions. And then we'll wrap up the day at about, there'll be some breaks in there. We'll wrap up the day at about 5 o'clock. Cool? All right, so with that, please help me welcome with a warm round of appreciation, Perry Marshall.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really delighted that you're all here, and I was thinking this morning about a seminar I went to, I guess this is about 15 years ago. I went to a Kennedy seminar. It was a copywriting seminar in Phoenix, And somewhere in the middle of it, I had lunch with this kind of odd guy named John Paul Mendoza. And I had his business card, and the very next stop after Phoenix was China. I went to China to go see Brian in 2002. So I'm riding a 6-hour cab ride from Suzhou to Donyang, which is this weird little factory town. And it was in this black Audi, and like we're going through all these streets and towns, and like the traffic is just like, you know how sometimes in foreign countries they don't seem to have rules. And so I had a stack of postcards, and you know, not like you have a whole lot to do in the back of a cab for 6 hours. And so I'm writing these notes, and it would say, "Dear John." So I pull out John's business card, like, well, how about I send John a postcard? I just met this guy. "Dear John, what happens if you're on a 6-hour cab ride through rural China, and you and coming the other way is a bicycle that is being passed by an ox cart that's being passed by a car that's being passed by a big blue truck? You speed up." And I, you know, Perry, and I buy a stamp and I drop it in the mail, and I send it to China, and it turns out, as it happens, that John gets this postcard and he's like, "Dang, this guy's into weird adventures. I think I might like this guy." And thus did a friendship that began at a seminar end up, you know, becoming a lifelong friendship. And I would like to suggest to you that, you know, these various strange people that you're bumping into, some of them may very well become your best friends and colleagues, and certainly if there's anybody in your life that's going to actually understand you, it's more likely to be people in this room than the people at home. So welcome. So today, do I need to use this?
Yeah,
Okay.
it looks like.
So I will just, that's not a problem. So, okay, so today I want to get you guys thinking in a different mode. So this seminar today is going to be rather experimental. I told Ixel Katz this morning, she said, "Perry, I bought your book and I'm going to read your book." And I said, well, if you read between the lines, you will actually see that this is a business book. But you will have to read between the lines. Okay, now, why do I say that? Well, business is biology. Okay? Business is how humans feed themselves.
Are you saying it's like cells?
No. Well, not today. No, business is an extension. So a corporation is a living organism. Okay? So y'all probably know that the cells in your body completely replace themselves every 7 years, okay? Well, the employees in a corporation may completely replace themselves every 7 years, but it's still the corporation. It still exists as an entity. It's the same thing with like those termite mounds. You ever see those? You know, they're in Africa, and they're constantly shifting and changing. There's stuff going in and out, and there's pieces of it that's constantly getting replaced. But that termite mound could still last 50 years, even though the termites are turning over and turning over and turning over. Okay, and so business, if it's fractal, okay? So you can look at a single cell, you can look at a colony of cells. If we took a cup of coffee and we put cream in it, and then we just let it sit on the shelf for a few days, mold would start growing, colonies of bacteria would start growing, and those colonies of bacteria are cooperating with each other. And in fact, if I took an eyedropper and I dropped some poison in that cup of coffee to kill those bacteria, the bacteria around the ring, the outer ring of the cluster will actually, they'll form, I almost want to say a human shield, okay? Like they'll actually go into protective mode and they'll sacrifice themselves for the sake of the colony, okay? And bacteria talk to each other. They have words for you and me and us and them. They do. Like, I'm not kidding. I don't know if we'll have time for it today, but my favorite TED Talk is called How Bacteria Talk by Bonnie Bassler of Princeton, and you should all watch it. It's a really mind-bending talk. We might watch it today, but I don't know if I'll get to it or not. So business and biology are really the same thing, and so all of the things that we do in business are usually just unsophisticated versions of what nature itself has already been doing for a very long time. And so, as it says here on the slide, many breakthroughs in Silicon Valley, Wall Street, entrepreneurship that these things seek are already solved in the cell. We just need to look in the microscope. So this morning, I'm going to take you through an interesting exercise. And in the business world, we have two kinds of progress. We have Kaizen, continuous improvement, the gradual, incremental, little by little, better and better. And we have quantum leaps, okay? Now, one of the flaws of Darwin's original theory is he thought it was all Kaizen, continuous improvement, and it just gradually got better and better and better. Well, he was very, very wrong about that, okay? Because all of the really interesting stuff in evolution is quantum leaps. And in the Evolution 2.0 book, I describe evolution as running on 5 blades. There's an evolutionary Swiss Army knife, and all these cells have toolkits for changing themselves, because whatever you are today is not what's going to make you survive tomorrow. So you got to have this constant innovation going on. So they have a toolkit for innovation. Well, the highest, at the top of the evolutionary toolkit is something called symbiogenesis. And symbiogenesis works like this. So, in fact, let me show you. All right, so this is a picture of the world's most successful merger acquisition ever in history. Okay, and what it was this.
I got one, thank you.
This is an algae here, okay, and this is a early plant cell, and the plant cell ingested the algae, but instead of eating it, it was like, hey, wait a minute. It's like, you got your chocolate in my peanut butter. Hey, you got your peanut butter in my chocolate. And that version was, hey, you've got this little machine. Hey, Mr. Algae, you got this little machine that turns sunlight and carbon dioxide into energy, and it's like really good. So how about if I give you a condo with big windows and 2 stories and a doorman and room service, and you just sit there in your comfy couch in the condo and you generate energy, and let's just have a little deal here. And he's like, that sounds like a pretty good deal. And so he moved in. And that is now known as a chloroplast. So, you know, if you took high school biology, they told you that chloroplasts are the thing that make all the leaves sick. See all those green leaves right outside the window there? That's because of chloroplast, but what they didn't tell you is that chloroplast is actually just algae. It even has its own DNA. Okay? And it reproduces independently. I mean, this is why we're pretty sure that this merger acquisition happened. It's because the chloroplasts reproduce on their own cycle inside the plant, and they do it in a controlled way so they don't overtake the place, they don't overrun the place, and the plant has its own DNA, and you know, so a Starbucks in the lobby of a Marriott hotel, that is a symbiotic relationship, right? The Starbucks moves into the Marriott and they start sharing stuff. Now, I want you to think about what happens if you put a Starbucks in a Marriott hotel. Do you suppose they use the same water lines? Do they use the same sewage lines? Do they use the same electrical system, right?
Yeah.
Right? They might have the same carpet, right? The whole thing gets integrated together. You don't need separate stuff for both businesses. You combine a lot of stuff together and you get economies of scale. Well, the same exact thing happens when there are symbiotic mergers. Now, this gentleman here is a friend of mine, Quan Zhang from the University of Tennessee, and he actually got one of these experiments to take. Okay? He took amoeba and X bacteria and he put them together, and they fought like cats and dogs for 18 months and mostly just killed each other. But at the end of it, the amoeba had swallowed the X bacteria, and now one was living inside the other. Now here's the interesting part. This is actually the key to the whole thing. Each of these started shedding DNA and consolidating functions until, if he separated the two, they both died. Okay? You don't have a symbiogenesis event until the mutual interdependence is so complete that each truly needs the other for survival. Now, how many of you read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Okay? In that book, Stephen Covey says that there are 3 levels of maturity. There's dependence, there's independence, and then there's interdependence. Symbiogenesis is the highest level of relating. Okay? And it's the biggest quantum leap that exists in an evolutionary scenario. Now, if you have any appreciation for codes or programming or engineering, what you understand is what this guy observed was an absolutely extraordinary feat of engineering done by microorganisms in real time, which, as far as you can tell, has the appearance of even having some level of self-awareness. I mean, they are negotiating this out, right? I don't need this, and you don't need that, and, you know, okay, what happens in a corporate merger acquisition? Well, there's blood and guts and fighting and everything else, and eventually, if it's successful, which most of the time it actually isn't, but if it's successful, you have a complete symbiosis, and hopefully you create something new that did not exist before. Okay? You can't get a quantum leap from Kaizen continuous improvement. It'll never happen. Okay? And all of you have probably had the experience. Okay, so if I rewind the time machine and I go to the early days of Google AdWords. Okay, Google AdWords comes out. All I got to do is just Kaizen, 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 and the thing just never seems to get better, right? And as long as I just stay ahead of the curve, man, I can wipe out my competition, I can be at the top of the market. But what eventually happens is like, your guy's like, dude, a 14.5% click-through rate is pretty good, Perry, and like I don't know how to get it up to 20. I've tested 286 ads, and we're not getting anywhere with this, right? You peak out somewhere, right? And then the only way you're gonna stay competitive is downstream from that Google ad. You're gonna have something that's better than anything else that existed before. And it's really gonna come down to a killer definitive selling proposition rather than just a better ad or, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic or putting lipstick on a pig, right?
Outside of Google AdWords.
Huh?
Something outside of Google.
Well, right. It's something in your product, right? And it's not just your slogan, right? It's like
The concept.
it's the deliverable. It's like, what are they going to get that's superior? Okay. So, amoeba plus X bacteria in 18 months. And by the way, I had to dig hard to find this. This guy is, I think he should have got a Nobel Prize or something for this. But I was like, okay, they have all these theories about symbiogenesis, but has anybody actually done this? He actually did it. And I exchanged emails. I invited him to the party, but he couldn't make it. So anyway, so there's a few different ways that this can turn out, okay? Maybe I can make this a little bigger. So you got all kinds of different versions. You've got the little a's and the b, and then there's a bunch of a's inside of b. But then you can have a, b, and c, and you could have a, b, and c separately, or you could have b inside of a, or you could have a inside of b. Your body is basically, there's cells inside of cells inside of cells. Has anybody ever heard of mitochondria?
Yeah.
Mitochondria are the things that convert oxygen to energy. They are bacteria. They are bacteria that live inside your cells, and there's a symbiotic merger, I don't know, a billion years ago or something. That's like the world's second most successful merger acquisition in all of history, okay? Well, so there's a formula here, and it is X plus Y minus Z equals symbiosis, all right? And the minus is the important part, and the minus is the hard part. Any idiot can add, right? Any idiot can just stick stuff on. Any idiot can add 9,000 more steps to the process, okay? It takes a genius to subtract, okay? So, for example, restaurant plus automation plus drive-through window minus spaghetti, burritos, donuts, baked potatoes, steak, and carrots equals McDonald's. Okay? McDonald's is much more about what it's not than it actually is what it is. And the original McDonald's had 9 items on the menu.
Including soda.
Including soda, okay? All right, classified ads plus search engine plus bid auction. Let's stop right there. Classified ads plus search engine plus bid auction. That's a symbiogenesis of 3 things, right? Now, we take it for granted now, but it was a real stroke of genius for somebody to go, we need a very particular kind of auction so that the advertisers will be fairly competing with each other, right? And minus pictures and banner ads, which was what everybody else was doing back in, year 2000, equals Google AdWords. In this symbiogenesis, X plus Y, or W plus X plus Y minus Z, created the 800-pound gorilla of the internet. It basically Google organized the Wild West of the internet, okay? Airline, minus fancy meals first class in all planes except 737s, is Southwest Airlines, right? Southwest Airlines is very subtractive. Yeah, how many people got here on Southwest? All right. Furniture plus Swedish design plus giant blue warehouse plus cafeteria minus pre-assembly and minus lots of space taken up by assembled furniture equals IKEA. So, we're going to do a little exercise here. Now, I did this at Notre Dame in November, Notre Dame Business School, and I gave him a kind of a condensed Evolution 2.0 presentation, and then we went into what I've been showing you here, and we did an exercise, and by the end, as far as I can tell, one of the groups had figured out how to solve a major problem in a big company, okay? And I can't talk about it any further than that because, you know, like Greg said, you know, no, you can't put that on video and, you know, all of that stuff, okay? You know, this is a private business school here. But but the whole presentation's on YouTube now, and it's on my website. And like I am really serious when I say that you can sit on your deck and look carefully at the flowers growing in the flower pot, and you can get ideas about business that might not have otherwise occurred to you. We'll get to this a little later today, but my idea for the Swiss Army knife for advertising came right out of nature and genetics. I just stole it from a tree in Costa Rica. And I haven't had to pay it any royalties or anything. I send positive, happy thoughts to Costa Rica. So maybe that counts. But I want you to break into groups of 3 to 5, and here's what I want you to do. This will be a 30-minute exercise for the timekeepers. Choose the person with the most pressing business problem. So whoever's got a bleeding neck, I'm sure there's all kinds of blood squirting out of aortas in here somewhere, okay? Choose a different person with the most eccentric field of knowledge, whatever that might be. I mean, how many copywriters do we have in the room? Okay, I have never met a copywriter that was not in this bizarre, you know, rabbit trails and wormholes of weird things that you're into. You know, maybe you're into anime movies or something. Okay, whatever it is. So, person with most pressing business problem, person with most eccentric field of knowledge, and between the 3 to 5 of you, I want you to do a symbiotic merger, x plus y minus z equals. And the question is, what are you going to subtract? Okay? Steve Jobs was ruthless about subtraction. No, you get like there, you know, write about these meetings where, you know, some software engineer gets his head kicked in, you know, bludgeoned because it takes 5 clicks to get to a menu when clearly you could have got there in 3, and Steve just had no tolerance for these extra steps. Okay? And like, you know, any surgeon could just like cut out your appendix, okay? But if he doesn't sew all the stuff back together, you'll bleed to death in 60 seconds, right? So subtraction is hard, but subtraction is incredibly powerful. So, see, assignment makes sense? So find some compadres, most pressing problem, most eccentric person, you know, and just to be a little clearer, I want the person with the eccentric field of knowledge, I want you guys to take something he knows about and make an analogy. It's like, okay, So what do Japanese anime movies have to do with your weird problem? Okay, and somehow in the stir fry we'll come up with ideas. So should go for 30 minutes, and then when we're done, we're gonna see what we came up with. Hi, this is Perry Marshall. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends.